Hello and welcome once again to Talking Pictures Podcast. I'm your host David and joined with me as always my co-host Brian. Brian, how are you today?
You may now refer to me henceforth by my pronouns, Furiosa.
The day has finally come after a long 4-year wait. 4 years?
4 years.
4 years of you anticipating Furiosa. It's now finally the day where we get to discuss it. Before we discuss it, we've got the trailer of the week. We're going to switch things up. I'm going to do the trailer of the week. You're going to do some flashbacks for us later. So,
Whoa, ho, ho.
You're going to take the reins on that. So, trailer of the week. I thought this is going to be tough because I don't know. How do you normally pick the trailer of the week? Do you actually just watch them and you go, okay, that's what it's going to be, or do you at the end before the podcast, do you look and see what's come out the previous week?
First, you got to hope that something worthy
Yeah.
of a trailer of the week does come out.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you need to either really love it or really be wary of it. You don't want to pick any random one.
Mm-hmm.
Thirdly, you just see what's out. You just pick. There's always a trailer released at some point. It just depends on what has been released. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes sometimes we record, and then after we're recording, something else is released, and damn it, reserve that for the following week.
Well, I'm gonna do a risky one. I'm gonna do a trailer that hasn't been released yet. It's a trailer for a film that's coming out tomorrow, and it's called Wolves, starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt, and it follows two fixers who are assigned to the same job. And I know I only knew about this because you had mentioned it a few times. A small teaser came out there today, and then the trailer is going to be releasing on Wednesday, which is the day that this episode releases.
And what's Wolves directed by?
Wolves is directed by John Watts of the Spider-Man, the most recent trilogy. He did those, and then he is also doing Skeleton Crew for Star Wars.
And George Clooney and Brad Pitt.
George Clooney and Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
the two main actors from the Ocean's films, reunited again.
Good friends. Expect something very good out of this movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I really like both George Clooney and Brad Pitt, and I really like them together as well.
I think this is going to flop.
You think it's going to flop? Why is that?
Because people just want to watch Vin Diesel drive off an exploding dam and then front on said explosion.
It does seem like the current... What am I trying to say here? It does seem like the current landscape for films is struggling a little bit. We've had, obviously, films that have come out now in the last couple of weeks that don't seem to be doing that well, i.e. Fall Guy. Fall Guy has seemed to just kind of come and gone. It's on streaming already. And hasn't really made that big of a splash, even though we both enjoyed it, and it seems that a lot of people are enjoying it. It's just not making the money, and unfortunately it seems like another film that's come out recently is
Let's
also
not get
struggling.
ahead of ourselves.
And let's not get ahead of ourselves, but
Wolves does look good. I do like the idea of just seeing two men driving in a car on a rainy night, and when the wipers wipe over the windshield, the name of the actor in one side is revealed on the other side, and then wipers again, actor's name displayed on the opposite side of the actor. So interesting enough.
yeah, so keep your eyes open for that. That trailer is releasing probably by the time you're listening to this, it's probably released now. So
I believe it's an Apple TV.
Apple TV, yeah, that's what has me interested as well, because Apple TV does put out a lot of good stuff. I will give them that. It's not a service I actually have, but it seems like they have more good stuff than bad stuff.
Yes, but wasn't too fond of Argyle.
Oh, was that Apple TV?
And
Okay.
Napoleon wasn't as great as it should have been.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe I'll take back what I said. We'll wait and see.
It does great TV shows.
Great TV shows. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Wolves. We're here to finally talk about Furiosa, the film that is top of your list for most anticipated films of this year. It's been most anticipated film for you for the last 4 years, I would say, roughly. Would you say that that's a fair assumption to make? I'm waiting for you to let loose on this. Come on.
You just want to let me take the reins.
You go for it. Listen, you work away. I'm here to be your passenger. I want you to be Imperator Brian. Oh, sorry, your new pronouns. Imperator Furiosa here is going to take us through the film. Brian, take it away.
Soundtrack in this movie was great, wasn't it?
Come on.
Okay.
Come
All
on.
right, motherfucker. Let's go. Okay. All right. When I first saw Fury Road, I never really fully grasped how much I loved it. Saw it in the cinema, went to my grandma's.
Mm-hmm.
As the weeks went on, I realised I liked it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I forget if it was the days of Extravision, whether I rented it or bought it, watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Liked it even more. Years went on. I became familiar in using Wikipedia and following movie pundits and reviewers on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And through all that community discussion and socializing online, Mad Max Fury Road became one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's something that we were able to look back on there last year. So if you want to hear Brian's thoughts on Fury Road in its entirety, listen back there. It's back in our feed back last summer. But sorry to interrupt you. Continue.
So I always wanted a continuation of sorts. And I knew George Miller was in the midst of a court case because he was suing Warner Brothers because he was forced to go over budget, therefore him not able to receive his bonus.
In relation to Fury Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
But once that was done, business as usual, nothing personal. Let's go on to making the next movie. And the next movie, rather than doing another Mad Max-centric movie, he had already created arguably a equally better character in that of Furiosa. He had a story to tell. He's going to tell the story for Furiosa. And when he apparently wrote Fury Road, he wrote so much content that led up to the days of that movie. Whether it was Max or Furiosa or Morton Joe or Nux or the Doof Warrior, the guy who plays the guitar and shoots the flames. He literally wrote a backstory for that.
So he was able to pull from, in any aspect, he had all this material. He's like, I can go in any direction here.
Yes, but he had material to go on. So 5 years later, Furiosa project announced. But of course, George Miller, I'd imagine he'd be an advocate for this in not de-aging actors. Oh, just cast a younger actor, sure. And he's done it with Tom Hardy, recasted as Max from Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
And so I always thought it was funny that Furiosa, originally played by Charlize Theron, is never recasted in the next movie with Anya Taylor-Joy. Great casting. Love it. No arguments from me. And after that, Chris Hemsworth was cast, and that felt just perfect. Chris Hemsworth, Australia's arguably most, aside from Hugh Jackman, the franchise Viagra for blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
And
he's one of their main exports, alright, yeah.
Exactly. So it's almost perfect. And rather than him playing a Mad Max type of character where he gets cool looking hair regardless of smudges of dirt on his face, where he gets a nice clean display of his six-pack with a very Thor-esque voice. No, none of that. No, Colin Farrell him up in The Penguin. No, give him long, dirty, raggedy, scaly skin and a beard. Let's put a prosthetic nose on him. Yeah, let him use his accent, but heighten it and exaggerate it. And then make him a little more crazy. I think Chris Hemsworth is one of the best characters to ever fit in the world of Mad Max.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He absolutely just completely fits in. His portrayal, he's playing Doctor... No, not even Doctor. I don't know why. For some reason, I always put the name Doctor on him, but he's playing Dementus, which is, first of all, a great name for a Mad Max character. Perfectly fits. And then the character himself just perfectly fit within the world. Like, there's... At no point did I think that if Max turned up, that he wouldn't, like, if this was just a Mad Max film rather than Furiosa's film, that he would go up against Dementus, and that would be perfectly fine. You know, he fits in perfectly with that. And like that, yeah, like you're saying there, I'm glad that Chris Hemsworth didn't come in to play a supporting role to Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa, that he didn't play the other, what was the
Praetorian Jack.
Praetorian, yeah, the what are those names? They're just like titles, is it?
Praetorian Jack. Well, Praetorian is something like a guard,
right?
Like a warrior. To pretty much his role working for Immortan Joe. Praetorian, that's what that is.
And what's Imperator mean then?
Imperator.
Yeah.
Something similar.
Okay.
Something similar. Not they're different, but it is something similar. Something like warrior.
But yeah, I'm glad that he wasn't in that kind of a vein, that kind of a character.
Yeah.
That he is able to let loose and be the villain.
Even if you elevated Praetorian Jack's role, because obviously it would have been a waste if you...
Yeah, to have...
Yeah. Not that, actors serve the characters, regardless of the popularity of the actor. But still, come on. When this movie kept on going, I was able to follow the progress of Furiosa by following one of my film pundits on the YouTubes. So that was been quite easy. And yes, my earliest waiting period of Furiosa from its announcement, confirmation being greenlit, was 4 years ago. And I paid attention to the first looks when it was released, being Anya Taylor-Joy, and then later on Chris Hemsworth. And I remember Chris Hemsworth, his first set photos was when he had the red beard and hair. Remember?
I remember that too, yeah.
And then later on, it's black. Completely black. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? Did they do some footage and realise, we're not digging this, let's change it up. And I preferred the black coloured as opposed to the red colour. The red colour made him look very you can find the word, and I'll describe it, because when he had the red beard, the chin of the beard were two twirly stripes, and the mustache was twirly.
Oh, he was too dastardly.
There you go.
Yeah, he's like too cartoonish, like a maniacal villain.
Very fashionable. Whereas when he's in the black drapes, very hairy, fuzzy, greyed out, dirty.
Yeah,
definitely
more realistic. All right,
definitely belongs in the wasteland.
Yeah,
for an environment that it is. So I'm liking all that. However, still don't know who he was playing. Had an idea between certain characters. We knew Immortan Joe was coming back.
You thought he was a younger Immortan Joe to begin with,
and I was afraid of that. Now, regardless of my concerns or fears, I was always going to love it no matter what. But I thought, really, you want to get Chris Hemsworth to play a younger Immortan Joe because we know where Immortan Joe ends up. So why do you want to vote an actor who we know is capable of delivering something that Chris Hemsworth is to something that we have a certain expectation and a limited expectation? Because, as I said, we know where Immortan Joe ends up and we know what type of character he is. Therefore, he has to be refrained. Refrain?
Yeah.
He has to remain in the sandbox that Hugh Keys-Byrne had established.
Yeah. If he was playing Immortan Joe, he can only go as far as
what the previous
iteration of it was, because he can't go crazy, because that's not who Immortan Joe was.
And if he played a new character, which he did, the possibilities is endless.
The chains are off. Yeah, he can do anything. Yeah.
And we did have Immortan Joe return in this movie, and we can get into him when we feel like we're getting to things naturally. The other, I suppose, main character is Praetorian Jack. And he is played by Tom Burke. And not originally the actor casted, but we'll get to that later. I was very curious to know who it was. I thought, okay, so is he going to play Immortan Joe? No. So I realised, I think in the first trailer, I noticed him touching foreheads with Furiosa in that one shot, and he had the black on his forehead, so I thought, okay, bit of a love interest for Furiosa. This guy is great. That's great. And I think now we can get into the movie. Yeah,
so this is all the you've waited for 4 years, so we've kept the audience waiting now for about 20 minutes. So
well, we had to wait 45 minutes until Anya Taylor-Joy actually got into the movie.
Yeah. So give us a quick overview.
All right.
Did you enjoy the movie? I think that...
Did I? Fuck.
I think going into this, there was no way that the movie could ever live up to the expectations you would set yourself.
So there in my mind exists the perfect movie in that of Furiosa, and yet it will never be.
It couldn't be. There's no way.
No, even the title of the movie, Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga,
it didn't need that. Yeah,
it didn't need Mad Max, but for people who Gonna get high fucking people. Anyway, in my mind, there was the perfect movie. And I suppose it could have reached the heights that I had hoped it could. It didn't. Easily, Fury Road is my favourite Mad Max movie.
Yeah, but don't forget as well, you've lived with Mad Max for 10 years. You've lived with Furiosa now for 4 days.
Yeah.
So you do have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
You know, the levels of which
Yeah.
you've experienced these films are completely different. How many times have you seen Fury Road?
Oh,
At least 10, I'd say.
Yeah, a good few times. But I did watch the trailers before doing this episode. Can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah.
No, not watching it in the cinema. I'm saying that. I'm watching the trailers on the YouTubes, and I'm saying I can't wait to go back to cinema to watch it again. Because no one else is doing it.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. It seems that's kind of the song of the summer, isn't it? Is people just not going to the cinema.
Vin Diesel, Exploding Dam.
Yeah, if it's not there. But I would have thought the Furiosa would scratch that itch for people, because Fury Road is so highly regarded as, you know, the action movie of the decade.
Yes.
So I would have thought that Furiosa naturally would have come with that. And not only that, but when it premiered at Cannes, it got, you know, standing ovation and praise and everything like that. So it's not only that it was looking like it'll be a great one for audiences, but for critics as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised to see that it's not doing as well when it should be. Financially, yeah.
And it needs to, and if it doesn't, and I suppose it won't.
But then again, it might have long legs. We don't know.
Well, if we don't, we might not get movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
And we're just going to have to fucking stick with
Vin Diesel fronting on dams. Yeah. Let's talk about the movie then itself.
Right, so the movie is, of course, about a young Furiosa, and we know the story of Furiosa from Fury Road. She comes from the green place, she was abducted, she was forced to live the life she does, as one expects, because she's working for Immortan Joe in Fury Road. Okay. So
there's certain aspects we know going into it, like that we're expecting her to lose her arm.
Oh, you know, it's funny enough, that's actually not something that was on my mind at all.
Oh, really?
No, what I was thinking, okay, so I'm going into this movie knowing that it has to conclude where Furiosa is working for Immortan Joe as the driver of the war rig, as his imperator.
His main driver, pretty much. Yeah.
I'm going into that movie thinking that, not her arm.
That was what I was going into. I was with the arm thing. I was genuinely like, I hope that we're not going to find a load of different situations where it's teased, where it's like, oh, is she going to lose her arm? Oh, like, do you remember that film Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yes.
There's a joke in that where basically the waiter doesn't have an arm, and throughout the film then the waiter, when they go back in time, the waiter is doing a load of things that he could possibly lose his arm. So it's like, oh, this is when it happens. So I was afraid there could have been a possibility of that in Furiosa, where she's put in loads of different situations where she's going to lose her arm. But I'm happy to say that it didn't. It happened once at the beginning of the movie where I thought, oh, this is how it's going to happen. But it's not like it was like, you know, a close-up of her arm and you could see it. It was just a genuine situation where I thought, oh, it's about to happen. Then it didn't. And then nothing happened again until it happened. And when it did happen, what a great moment. What a great moment.
See how much I'm smiling?
Yeah, because it's genuinely all of a sudden you're like, oh, shit.
It's not even the reveal.
No.
It's what's happening next. We'll get to that. But I have a few examples as to why George Miller is, I suppose, above that. Above the teases. Above the
foreshadowing. Yeah.
I have a few examples from this movie, I think, where George Miller he's from a certain era. You know, he's 79.
He's old enough for our age, yeah.
Yeah. And look, from what we saw in Fury Road, he's capable of doing movies to service us, Gen Zs and millennials. But there's a few moments in here where I thought, okay, a character dies, but we don't get the insert shot of their corpse dead, and we don't get the one moment of the character mourning their death. All right, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to reveal it just yet.
Yep.
Okay, we don't get that. It happens, but we don't get what I've just said. The movie's final shot, very casual.
The last shot, yeah. Yeah.
Very like...
Not the gratuitous final shot. It's very much just
seamlessly.
Just that, and it's over.
Yeah.
You know?
Like a fade to black, and then a fade reveal to the directed by George Miller.
Yeah.
Font.
Yeah. Not even a fade. It's literally just a door closes, and with that snap, it cuts to black.
It wasn't final.
Yeah.
It wasn't...
But I think that it's interesting because I felt... Well, not even I felt. It was. It's very much that you would watch this film and then immediately watch Fury Road. It set it up in that way.
And I don't know if that's fan service or not. I don't even know if that's just putting what are those things on the bike for kids to use before.
Training wheels. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Stabilizers. Yeah.
Stabilizers.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are just stabilizers for those who aren't
clued into what's going on. I think it's more of a putting a bow on it and saying, okay, her saga is over now.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what happens next, here it is. Here's the next chapter. And it just so happens to be Fury Road. But I think that was him putting a nice clean bow on it and saying, this is her story now. Complete. And,
yeah.
You know?
And I thought that even Furiosa's mother's death scene, we know what happens. We know what it was leading to. We know the situation she was in that led to her death. But we don't actually see her death. And we cut to a certain period later. Of course, she's still played by...
much younger. It's not Anya Taylor-Joy for a while.
No, Elia Brown. I believe that's her name. She's obviously still that young actress. She's got longer hair. And I thought throughout the movie she was going to have dreams or nightmares where... she's going to relive that night, and we're going to see certain variations of maybe how her mother was killed, but we don't even get that at all. We maybe do get it once.
But it's not like it's a main feature.
Yes, so we don't actually get that. Did she burn to death? Did he just have her stabbed? Did he leave her there to dehydrate and die? We don't know. And those are the examples that I'm giving you, David, to show you that George Miller would not have teased us 3 or 4 times throughout the movie to, oh, is she going to lose her arm or not?
Yeah.
And the time where you thought she was when she was chained to the cage.
Yeah,
and,
that's exactly it.
And the war boys were picking her up. And then all of Dementis' goons are trying to leave. What does Dementis try to do?
He tries to save her, yeah.
He tries to save her. The man who killed her mother, the man who kidnapped her, the man who just keeps her a hostage for no other reason, just keeps her.
I think he obviously sees her as his daughter. He's taken her on in that role.
He
calls her Little D.
Yeah.
Like even at the end of the film, when they have their confrontation and she reveals who she is,
he still calls her Little D.
Little D because she never spoke to him. She never revealed her name was Furiosa. It wasn't until they were in the presence of Immortan Joe when she then went over to his side where she spoke for the first time, because she just denied Dementis everything, her voice.
Yeah. And
because of what he did to her.
And I suppose that shows how he felt betrayed, and, give my teddy back. And but when he saved her, I felt the energy in that. Now I'm gonna have to admit, the music really did help me with the energy. The music helped me a lot more than the visuals sometimes, but they accommodate each other, and I like that. And of course, I was looking forward to the face-off between the two warlords, Dementis and Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of funny, right? Especially for prequels. We know Immortan Joe is the villain of Fury Road, but he's making an appearance here. So how can it be easy to digest the fact that this rapist and manipulator of masses of thousands of delusional followers to die for him? How can George Miller make it digestible for us as an audience to
be on his side?
Not just be on his side, maybe that, or even just to acknowledge he is going to have to be an ally to Furiosa.
Yeah.
And that when we watch this movie and follow whatever storyline Immortan Joe is going to have, it's not going to conclude with his death.
Yeah.
It's going to conclude with him in a position of strength and winning. Winning over Dementis, because Dementis is not in Fury Road, therefore he has to die.
Yeah. And so, the Furiosa is working for him.
Yes.
And I suppose obviously you can't say that she's happy working for him because of the events of Fury Road, but she is working for him to such a capacity that she has become the driver of the war rig, like essentially the kind of highest in ranks she can receive.
She's not an assassin for him.
No.
She doesn't capture people for him. She just works for him. And as much as I do love Immortan Joe, I think he's one of the greatest villains I've ever seen in cinema. Played by Hugh Keays-Byrne, who unfortunately passed away, so they had to recast another actor, a younger actor, of course, which of course George Miller advocating for recasting, in my opinion. And I like how in this movie, towards the end, when Immortan Joe, he realizes that the Dementus has taken over Gastown, of course at this point long ago, but now recently Bullet Farm. And then here comes Furiosa. I'll not give away the situation, but he says he's coming for you, he's going to challenge you, he's going to lure you out. And here's us, the audience, wanting her to inform Joe, the villain for the next movie, of this information so they can both work together to essentially save Joe's life. But I like how all his posse, his sons, his council, are arguing how to approach the war against the Dementus. And I like there was this one moment that Joe was just standing there and he looked down at Furiosa for a second to get a good look at her visually to see she must be telling the truth. And of course, if you find him, you bring him to me. And he doesn't even say it, and he just looks at her. Doesn't even say it. Whether he would have done that or not, I don't know. But back to what I was saying about Joe, and that you need to watch this movie understanding that nothing bad is going to happen to him. He's not going to face any punishment or consequences or a judgment. Like, for example, when you watch the Star Wars prequels, you know that Anakin becomes Vader, therefore you need somewhat of a quote-unquote defeat to Anakin / Vader, because the guy killed children in that movie. He needs to receive some form of punishment, and he nearly died by having his limb severed off and being burned. We don't really get that here for Joe.
No.
So just make the Dementus worse and understand that we have to acknowledge that Fury Road is canon. Joe's time will come. Now just enjoy him. And I enjoyed him.
So did I, and that was a good example actually of having when his sons, they're all like explaining what to do, what they should do in the situation, and he's just listening. He's kind of making up his mind. He's taking on all pieces of advice, but then looks to Furiosa, and she is just as valid, giving him advice. In that he's like taking her in, and like you said, he's weighing it up, and he's like, okay, no, she's telling the truth because of the situation she's in. Obviously I won't spoil it as well, like you said there, but that he takes on kind of the visual information that he has and goes, okay, I believe that. I
also like the reservation he has in the movie, in this movie. Like, he's well spoken, he's not exaggerated, he's not grumpy, he's not the old man he is in Fury Road. Even though he has sons that could be the same age as him, but that's whatever. His dumb son, the baldy one, Rictus. He's in
Rectus.
Rictus?
Rectus. He named his son Scrotus and Rectus.
So Rictus is of course in Fury Road, but Scrotus is not. So I, of course, watching this movie thinking, oh, is Scrotus going to receive a villain death in Immortan Joe's stead? Like, a soldier from Immortan Joe's gang will represent the death of Immortan Joe in this movie as the secondary villain. But no, none of that. I have an answer for that later.
You see, like you said there, with kind of comparing it to Anakin, that like, oh, he needs to have some kind of downfall or anything like that. I thought if we were going to get that in any capacity, that Immortan Joe wouldn't have started off the way because he appears here the same way he appears in Fury Road, with the kind of the mask and the thing over his
I'm sorry to cut you off, but when we thought, oh, is he going to play Immortan Joe? Oh, is he going to play a healthy Immortan Joe? And his defeat in that movie is when he gets sick and the disease and he's forced to wear all this stuff to keep him alive. I thought, that's of course what I thought originally, and then I realized, oh, Chris Hemsworth's not playing Immortan Joe. But still, Immortan Joe is already Immortan Joe, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, you don't need every single character to, like, sometimes they just exist as they are, and that's absolutely fine. I thought it was interesting the fact that we don't really know the time between this film and Fury Road.
15 years.
Well, like, was it 15 years when this film ended.
Well, here's the thing. My understanding is that this movie takes, and this is one of the facts I knew going back 4 years ago, is that Fury Road takes place around 3 days.
Yeah.
Furiosa, 15 years, 20 years. So I would imagine that's from the start of the movie, I guess you could say, to the end of the movie. I wouldn't like to think that... No, it's not. I wouldn't think that this movie ends. This movie essentially ends and it's leading up directly to Fury Road. It does, but...
Like, how much time was there between that finale with her and Dementis?
Which finale? In the desert? Or
in the desert, yeah.
Or in the...
No, in the desert.
Well, then I'd imagine there's still a lot of years afterwards.
Yeah.
Because Dementis aged.
Yeah, yeah.
So there has been...
It's beyond the point of recognition from
yes,
Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, he no longer looked like Chris Hemsworth.
But we can get into the details of that later. So I think we really got sidetracked from talking about what the movie's about, because yes, we know Furiosa, taken from the Green Place, living the life of hardship under the rule of Dementis, but also that of Immortan Joe. And when she was, I suppose, traded to Immortan Joe, definitely did not want to feel revolted and disgusted by Joe any more than I already am if he were to bed Furiosa. Thank God that doesn't happen. But I like how Furiosa was able to hide amongst the crew and workers and riggers and mechanics of Joe's Citadel, and she was able to progress up the ladder, hiding herself, concealing her gender, and remaining as a mute. And then of course she comes across Praetorian Jack, and from there, from that action sequence, which is probably 20 minutes long,
when she's trying to escape.
Yeah, well, they're the only survivors from
from
that whole
that was a great sequence as well.
That's probably the action of the movie. That is the...
Between that and the Bullet Town sequence, those are the standout action sequences.
Yeah, well, I think this one is the prime one because it's right in the middle of the movie. We've only recently been introduced to Anya Taylor-Joy as Furiosa.
Yeah, we're a long time without her.
Yeah.
For a film that's about Anya Taylor-Joy as Furiosa. We spent a lot of time with the younger version.
And I really did like her a lot. I like that actress playing it, Aaliyah Brown, I believe. And I felt a bit... I kind of missed the fact that she's not with Dementis anymore. Because I not to say that it's a Joe Ellie relationship, but there's...
Definitely not, no.
There's something there. There's
it's all one-sided. But it's an interesting dynamic, all right, yeah.
I would feel more comfortable if Little D, as he called her, was with Dementis than with Immortan Joe.
Yeah. Because, as soon as she is with Immortan Joe and she is then in the vault
as one of the
wives, she's immediately in danger of being sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And luckily she has her wits about her and she's able to get away from that and then go and work with the war boys. But, like, you're right, that's not something I was fearful for her when she was with Dementis.
Yeah.
But as soon as she was with there and she was in that vault, then it was like all bets are off.
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that it wasn't even Immortan Joe, it was one of his sons.
Yeah.
Like, it's
definitely
fucked up. It's wrong.
Yeah, it's even wrong. It's even worse. But I like how they made it easy to digest that she escaped that and she worked her way through the years. And now I suppose the prime of the movie with the action scene, because now we've been introduced to Anya Taylor-Joy and the action scene, and I'll just spare the details, but if you saw Fury Road, it's the same as this. Different, but the same.
Well, it's hard to break down an action scene when there's so many moving parts to it.
And you don't have anything but audio to discuss.
Yeah, there's no dialogue or anything like that. It's great.
So let's just acknowledge that it was great, and it ended with her gaining an ally in that of Praetorian Jack. So,
and setting her on a new path altogether.
Yeah, because she was about to leave and he convinced her there's nowhere else to go, so you could just upskill here, and she does exactly that. And
Put it on her LinkedIn. Worked with Praetorian Jack.
and that's a cool name, Praetorian Jack.
It is. It's one of those, yeah, like I was saying earlier. I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, put a title in it, but add a normal name. Like Immortan Joe, Imperator Furiosa.
I couldn't remember Imperator. Whenever I would think about it, I would think she was Inquisitor Furiosa for some reason, but I couldn't remember Imperator.
Even Max Rokostansky.
That's a great name as well.
Rokostansky is a fucking class name.
One of those things in the Mad Max universe, the names and then the people themselves. Like, what would Immortan Joe be doing if this was a normal world? Like,
I think it'd be a businessman.
It's like some of them are just so crazy. Like,
but the thing is, this is supposed to take place 45 years after the collapse. Mm-hmm. So Immortan Joe would have been a teenager, I'd imagine, or a young child. Mm-hmm. Max is born into this world, just like Furiosa.
Is he?
Well, in the iteration of Tom Hardy, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Do we know what the fall was? You rewatched the originals.
The fall was the oil disasters.
Okay. I like to think that this is what's happening in Australia, and in America, it's actually Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Like, that's the kind of world.
Really?
Well, just like,
I just like that little comparison right there.
Let's have all these different post-apocalyptic worlds taking place in the same post-apocalyptic world.
Something happens with the oil, and a lot of fires broke out, and civilization collapsed. A couple of trees were blowing in the wind, and the footage was black and white.
Very, very different, that original Mad Max to Furiosa, isn't it?
That's all you need. But sure, it's reboot. Mm-hmm. I never really fully acknowledged it until rewatching the original Mad Max movies. But yes, Fury Road is a reboot, relaunch to revisit the
reinvigorate franchise. Yeah,
and that's exactly what it is. It's just a reboot, and because there's no way Max Rokostansky 45 years ago was a middle-aged man as a cop.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
So
there's a theory of that the Max Tom Hardy Max isn't the original, Mel Gibson Max, because doesn't he find a kid in the third film in Thunderdome?
Which kid is that now? There's
a kid. I remember reading a theory that kid, it's a mute kid.
Is he feral?
Yeah, the feral kid.
That's in Road Warrior.
In Road Warrior, that's actually Tom Hardy's Max.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, that's fair enough.
If that's what you want to have, is your.
If you want to do that, but I don't even need to. I don't even need to talk about that. No, don't need to know everything. I just enjoy these movies for what they are, and I appreciate that literally mastermind, George Miller is able to deliver upon us these exotic, exquisite, lavish, colourful, vibrant action set pieces, odysseys.
Yeah. Do you want to jump into some flashbacks before we go any further?
Yeah, David.
Laura, play that jingle for us. Thank you, Laura. Brian, you want to take us away with some flashbacks?
I'll take the reins on this.
I'm not used to not doing them, so you go away. You tell me.
I probably should have taken the reins on letting Laura know that I'm doing it, because she's looking at me.
Do you want to have her play it again?
No,
you do it. You sure?
No, it's okay. No,
don't want to do more work for her.
No.
You can tell her when we're leaving.
Yeah. So, David, my first flash fact is that Tom Burke was not the original actor to play Praetorian Jack.
Yes, you teased this earlier.
I probably said this as many times as I mentioned Furiosa, maybe half the time. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, yes, Black Manta or Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen show. That actor, yes, was originally casted as Praetorian Jack, and it was never revealed why he stepped out of the role nearly a year afterwards. But when they casted Tom Burke, an actor I was so not familiar with in anything, I knew he was a name. I knew he was British. I knew he was a fancy, classy actor, similar to Dan Stevens.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there was a movie that came out called The Wonder with Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
And I noticed in the cast, Tom Burke, here's my chance to get an understanding of what his skills are.
Yeah.
And when I was doing some jobs in the TV industry in Ireland, I came across co-worker who worked on The Wonder, and they said Tom Burke had a big fucking ego.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like sense of entitlement. Like,
Okay.
do you know who I am?
Okay. Interesting.
I bet he didn't act like that on the set of Furiosa.
Probably not. Probably
No.
not.
No.
Yeah. They're so different.
Very much
Tom
different.
Burke and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I would have loved to see him, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, in this because I think he's a great actor.
He would
I
have
love
fit.
him.
He would have fit right the F in this
Yeah.
world, and maybe not playing a character like Praetorian Jack. I think Yahya Abdul-Mateen would have played an awesome ally to Furiosa, perhaps coming from a tribe similar to natives of the Australia. It's like where they something like the characters from Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah,
Like
I know
they're
the ones you're
not
talking
they're not
about, yeah.
wearing fully clothed uniforms. They're an easygoing society, using spears and bow and arrows, quite native to the lands. You know, primitive, but not in a weak sense.
Yep, I know what you mean, yeah.
I think Yahya Abdul could have played a character like that, because no matter how many times I thought of Chris Hemsworth playing an ally, I always thought he's playing the villain. He is no doubt playing the villain.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And Praetorian Jack, I like that Tom Burke played him, because Praetorian Jack was a good profile of a good, moral, nice Mad Max.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, he is similar to Mad Max in certain looks, in mannerisms, but he's definitely the good one. He's definitely the nice version of what Mad Max can be.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got similarities to Tom Hardy, but it's like if you were to team up with someone just based on having a conversation between Praetorian Jack and Max Rokitansky,
You're going to go with Jack, yeah.
You're going to go with Jack.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're not going to
have much of a conversation with Max either, are you?
No. Regardless of capabilities in armed combat or hand-to-hand combat. You know? So that was I really dug the character Praetorian Jack. So flashback number 2, David. Did you know that the actor playing Immortan Joe, of course not played by the original actor because he passed away, Hugh Keys-Byrne passed away in 2020, I think. So Lashy Hulme, I think is the name. Lachy
Oh, yeah.
Hulme.
I wouldn't know how to pronounce that either. So hopefully you've got the pronunciation right. Yeah, tell me more.
Lashy Hulme. I think it might have been 2.5, 3 months ago when I learned who the actor was playing Immortan Joe. Finally, as soon as the name was revealed in the news that I would follow, I immediately looked him up and know nothing of him. He's of course Australian. George Miller loves to hire the local theatre.
Yeah. I mean, Mad Max to me is an Australian franchise. So, yeah, absolutely hire Australians, yeah.
Absolutely, hire away. But that's not the fact I'm giving you, David. Lashy played 2 characters in this movie.
Let me think.
And he looks nothing like either of them. Of course, he doesn't look like Immortan Joe. I suppose if you take away the mask and the hair and, of course, the face paint.
Yeah. You're not seeing much of his face anyway. You're only seeing half the face. So who else did he play?
He had a bigger disguise in the other character he played.
Who?
I don't think you'll know the character's name if I say it, but if I describe the character, you'll know who he is. He was called Rizzledale Pell.
No. Okay.
He's the guy with the one eye.
Oh, yeah. With Dementis.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very different. Wouldn't have guessed that at all.
That's the actor playing Immortan Joe.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting.
Pretty sure I have my facts right. Because I had to look it up. I had to look up Rizzledale Pell because... But yeah, that's Lashy Hulme. And he's not as old as that Rizzledale Pell character.
No, I'm looking at a picture of him here now, and he doesn't look, like you said, doesn't look anything like Immortan Joe. Doesn't look anything like Rizzledale Pell, like you said. He doesn't look like either of them, and he's much younger. He's that's crazy. I did not know that at all. But I can see here from his filmography, he's worked with George Miller before on 3,000 Years of Longing.
He's not the only actor who worked with George Miller.
No, who else? Bonus fact.
Quayton Blades, I think the poor chap his name is. He's the little fella who was the war boy in The Rig.
Oh, yes.
He was in 3,000 Years of Longing as well.
Yeah. I remember him now, actually. Yeah.
Did I pronounce his name right?
Let me see. What was his name here? I put my phone down. His name is Quayton Bales.
Bales.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, he played the war boy in The Rig. Mm-hmm. He gave him a bit of an extended role.
Yeah.
Here's a flashback within your flashback. He casted Quayton because he was bullied in school. And I believe
he'd been made fun of because he's
a little embarrassing. And videos of that reached online. You know what George Miller says? Young man, would you like to be in my movie? Mm-hmm. And he got him in the movie. I don't know if he auditioned for it or if he knew it, but yeah, he cast him in it. And he gave him some lines in this movie as well. And
biggest flex ever. I got bullied and I ended up in a Hollywood movie. 2 Hollywood movies.
I like the short role that he played in the War Rig, being ready to...
He only wanted to do one thing, and then unfortunately didn't get to do it either. But
it was good. Dave, I've got one more flashback for you. I've actually got hundreds of them.
Yeah, I know, but we've only got a certain amount of time here, Brian.
So I'll just give you just one last fact.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was originally announced to release in 2023.
Okay. And was it pushed back with the strikes?
Nope.
Nope.
At the start of 2022, it was pushed to 2024. Mm-hmm. So I had to endure all of 2023.
Yeah, without it. Yeah, it's like I was saying there at the start, it's the film that I know you have been waiting for at the longest time. So now that you have it, I'm sure that as soon as it releases on 4K Ultra HD, it'll be in your collection as soon as possible, right there next to Mad Max Fury Road.
We'll see. But in the meantime, Love Laureate and Laura, you can play that music and get us back. So, David, we got talking about Morton Joe. We've delved into the setup of the movie, and we pretty much got into a lot of things. Do you want to talk about anything first that you didn't think was on par before we finish it by talking with Hemsworth and the final maybe half hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Because I've a few things I have to say about things that I maybe don't agree with.
Yeah, no, I don't have too much now because obviously, like, I consider this episode your episode here, so I don't want to take any time away from you. I think going into it, my expectations were, I obviously had the wrong expectations because Mad Max Fury Road is very much just a full-on chase scene.
Yeah.
It's pretty much action scene after action scene, stopped by maybe 5 to 10 minutes of dialogue or exposition or something like that, and then we're back to a long action sequence.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. It's very much a saga. Like you said, over 15 years, we're telling a full story about this person's life.
Yeah.
So my expectations were just of something different.
I suppose I was saved with that because I knew to expect that. Mm-hmm. I knew to expect this to be a saga, an odyssey, a slowly burned or slow paced story. I knew to expect that.
You knew what you were getting into.
Yeah. I thought this was going to be similar to Beyond Thunderdome if Fury Road was similar to Road Warrior.
Fair enough. Yeah,
that's what I was expecting.
I was surprised at how long it took us to get to Anya Taylor-Joy. But like you said there, kind of once we then got to Anya Taylor-Joy, I was like, I kind of was enjoying Little Furiosa, you know, because we spent a long time. We were like 45 minutes with her. Like,
even when, and here's another thing we'll get into. Even when you do your now, it's the next chapter. Mm-hmm. Oh, great, we're gonna see Anya Taylor-Joy picture. Then nope, still the little girl, still Elia Brown. Mm-hmm. But then the next scene, it's Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, it's just like that one final kind of setup.
Yeah.
Of this is where she's been.
So then that's where one of my. I don't have a huge issue with this, but it's just something I guess maybe you could undo it. Is the chapters. the chapters feel so spontaneous, and if I may be so bold, random.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Like,
I can understand that it didn't feel like in any of the chapters that it was like, okay, that you were nearly expecting the end of the chapter here. Do you know, like a punctuating, like, full stop. Next chapter.
It felt all too casual.
Yeah.
Like the closing of the movie in the end. Like, it all felt too casual, seamless. It's like you didn't need it. There was no, as you said, full stop at the end of each chapter and no jump start to the next one. I honestly feel like, and I know this is not what George Miller was thinking. I know this because he's a mastermind. The trailers say so itself. But I have to believe that he didn't make the chapters for the sake of it. Like, I've never done a movie that has chapters. I'll throw it in here. And I'll force it. And not only, it doesn't feel forced, it just doesn't feel structured.
Yeah, it doesn't feel necessary. Like, you could take those out and it doesn't do anything to the film whatsoever.
I would have accepted the seamless passing of time.
Yeah.
Here's the scene where she escaped. Here's the next scene where she's part of the crew. Here's the next scene where it's a different actor. The actors we were expecting Furiosa to be. Maybe we can talk about the excess display of green screen.
Yeah, I didn't notice it too much, but I figured that every time I saw it, I was like, okay, this is just what he wanted. This is what George Miller wanted. Like, it was intentional to have it look like that.
Well, let's talk about the entire runtime when Furiosa's mother was part of the movie.
Yeah.
Everything looked like it was on a green screen.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling out it for being a critique. I think if it was in almost any other movie, I would be calling it out, but I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt of this is a predecessor to Fury Road. It's from George Miller. But from the scene where little Furiosa is over the bike and the bikes are speeding through the desert, the scene where Furiosa's mother gets her back and she tells her to go, promise me you'll find your way home, and she stays in that little arch canyon to fight everyone off. Green screen. All of it looks not real. It was not shot in location, but there are scenes shot in location in this movie. I know it. I've seen the sets. So why does everything look digital in the background? Everything looks like a very advanced video game or a volume like that Disney keeps on using so much. Like, even the action scenes, but I'll not fault this, but even action scenes and the driving scenes, you know, when two characters are in a car and you can see the outside of the car when the car is moving and all you see, that is just definitely a green screen. That doesn't bother me. When all the action set pieces, that doesn't bother me. But when you can see an actor is clearly being shot on camera, but the background is as fake as it can be noticed, I thought to myself, is this going to be a disaster?
You had worries.
Not only did I over prepare myself to be the greatest thing for womankind, but when I was watching the start of the movie, I was so fearful that I had caught myself in a trap where I now need to acknowledge the faults and flaws of the movie.
You felt like you were like, oh man, as the thing that I've hyped up for the last 4 years, is it going to be bad?
Yeah.
Am I going to be watching something now that I don't ever want to watch again? I understand the feelings that the possibility of your world shattering and going, oh, this isn't going to be not the greatest thing ever. There's a possibility this might not be good. You know, that's the worst thing that could happen.
And while I did feel that it did not escalate to that, I knew by the saving graces of the performances and the dialogue and the action set pieces, I knew I was going to be saved. But there
was a lot of like stylistic choices as well. Like there's that the shot of when she's looking at her mother on the tree and it's from her eye.
Yeah.
You know that shot? Like there's a lot of things that are very stylistic in it, and so that's why I thought, okay, whatever I'm seeing, because it's on green screen, it's like, okay, he wanted it to look like that.
Yeah.
Because there's even like shots with the history man. Do you know at the very beginning where it's like at nighttime and the history man's in the desert and we just like go up to the history man and then it fades to black And it's like, okay, that's really...
Actually, he fades and disappears.
Yeah. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that's really just kind of out of nowhere or like weird. So that's why I kind of just accepted like, okay, I might see something here that is just a little bit off, but that's intentional. That's why I was easier to forgive.
But things like that don't, for me, qualify for what I've called out as the
Fair
flaws.
enough, yeah.
My flaws come from a place where it can be improved.
You just know it can look better.
Visual effects wise.
Yeah,
whereas
that's fair.
this, a man disappearing in the midst of nowhere and a tree from the eye shot, that I've seen much stranger things in films.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just metaphors. Whereas there are certain scenes in this movie where there are, let's say, a fire might look not as good.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my issues. But there's a few other things as well, David, that I want to get into that I guess I didn't really fully agree with.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's another thing, and I don't know if I'm just being a dick about it.
No, I think before you go into what you have the problem with, I think that the fact that you are able to say like that this is something that you were going into knowing you were going to love.
Yeah.
But the fact now that you're able to go back and say, well, these are the things I didn't like about it, that just like qualifies the fact that you do actually really enjoy it, because you're able to look back and say, well, these are the things I didn't like about it. It's not like you're just saying a blanket like, yes, it was amazing. You're able to critique it now for what it was. So don't feel like you're being a dick now. You're being the same way that you are with every other movie that you haven't, been building up in your mind for years.
Okay.
So please go ahead. What are your critiques?
Do you remember that one scene where Praetorian Jack is talking to Furiosa and he's holding her arm and they're just chatting? I think she was injured in the back. And
Yeah.
And then she hasn't talked much at all.
No.
And she says, when they're talking about where she comes from, she says, come with me.
Mm-hmm.
While the shot is on Praetorian Jack's face and it's over Furiosa's shoulder. This is probably one of the first noticeable times where she speaks and you don't see her face deliver the dialogue. I don't know why, but that just like, I would have shot that on her side. I
get
would,
what you mean. Yeah.
I would have, because this is the first time after how long where you hear her speak. And you understand the emotional situation and what her saying come with me means.
Yeah.
Because you think it would have meant a little bit more and would have felt better if we saw her say the line.
Yeah.
If we saw her face say the line. If we saw her lips move. Not over the shoulder.
It's not something that I thought of, but you saying that, I 100% agree with you. Because of the emotional stakes that it has.
Yeah.
Because it's, like you said there, she doesn't speak. I know this is, if I had done flash facts, this would have been one of my facts. She has 30 lines of dialogue throughout the film.
Oh, wow, really?
30 pieces of dialogue, which is minuscule. It's a tiny amount.
And it's less than Tom Hardy.
Less than Tom Hardy had in Mad Max, in Fury Road. But you're right. Having her not be the focus of that scene, and like you said there, the emotional stakes of it, because she is inviting him back to the green place.
Yeah.
We know from the early scenes with her mother.
Yeah.
No one can know.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can know. So her then offering Praetorian Jack to come with her, that's a big, big thing. So you're right. That should have been, the focus should have been on Furiosa in that shot. It is a little bit of a nitpick because it is one shot.
Yeah.
But it's a fair critique because, like you said there, it's everything, what her offering him to come with her, what that means as a whole. You're right. I agree with you on that.
It's an easy fix.
It is. Yeah. It's one shot. It's the reverse shot.
And on top of that, let's talk about something else I would have preferred. You have to be a little naive to not think Praetorian Jack was not going to die. Because he has to die, I think.
Yeah. You're obviously, like we were saying there, you go into a prequel with preconceived notions.
Yes.
Praetorian Jack, spoiler, does not appear in Fury Road. So we know straight away he's not
going to make it.
Not going to make it. Now, I don't remember fully. Does Furiosa in Fury Road, does she ever mention him?
No.
Or does she ever mention that she had someone?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
See, I felt as though, I obviously misremembered. I had felt like, okay, this is her love interest here. He's not going to make it. And that's why in Fury Road, there's no even hint of a romance between Max and Furiosa. Not that I ever needed it, but in obviously a lot of Hollywood action films, you're going to get a natural romance between the male and female lead. So having Praetorian Jack there was a good addition where I felt like, okay, she's going to have an emotional attachment to him in some way, some capacity. She's going to lose him, and that's going to be her closing herself off in terms of relationships and you know, she's looking out for herself pretty much.
Yes. And I go for it. I like the romance here. I felt it very much. Oh, Victorian Jack's a good guy. Mm-hmm. And
he's the best of a bad bunch. There's not a single other person in this film who you could say, oh yeah, I could see her going with him either.
So I think an insert shot of his corpse after he's been dragged across a circle of desert sand.
Just a bit of punctuation.
While dogs chewed on him for, let's say, a couple of hours. Hours. I think an insert shot would have been final to show, okay, Dementis, the villain of the movie, has just killed the lead romance for Furiosa.
Just some kind of confirmation that he's gone.
Yeah,
that
because
he's no longer.
Because our confirmation was the cross dissolve to indicate the passing of time, and they were still going in circles. There was no mention of him being killed. Furiosa never mentioned him saying, "You killed my mother. Now you killed him." Nothing.
No,
literally nothing.
And you would have thought, yeah, absolutely, that would have been a major thing to bring up as well, like the kind of first person that she's trusted and the first person she's loved, now dead at the hand of Dementis again. Now, you know, he's killed the only two people that she's loved throughout her life.
Yes. Now, while I can say the reverse shot of saying "come with me" and excess use of the green screen and unnecessary use of the chapters, those are proper critiques. Maybe I can consider the lack of finalization to cement that Praetorian Jack was killed and he's dead. Maybe that is just something that George Miller doesn't need to do as a traditional Hollywood storyteller, director.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
he felt it's not needed. It's implied, and the audience
because
is smart enough to figure that out.
He's not going to tease you with the foreshadow of Furiosa losing her arm. He's gonna tell the story he feels like he's gonna tell, and that's it. And he's not gonna, like I said earlier, put stabilizers on the movie for you. I think if I said this to George Miller, I think he'd say to me, "Have a bit of cop on, son."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I've clearly visually showed you the passing of time of this guy being dragged around a circle. How many times?
Yeah,
and dogs chewed on him.
Yeah. What do you think happened? Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
He's so not spoon feeding you. I showed you. I'm not telling you. I showed you. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just being a little bitch. So hey, I can admit that. So then, of course, I think we need to chat a little about Chris Hemsworth as Dementis. When Immortan Joe has his big monster truck and he's got his costume, Dementis has his chariot of motorbikes.
I thought that was very funny. I thought that seeing a villain like use things in excess when they are scarce.
Yeah.
Like, it's the fact that Dementis uses 3 motorbikes to pull himself on a chariot.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is so wasteful. You know that this wasteland, like, the main commodity really is petrol, is gas.
Yes.
And here you are using, and this is before he's found Gastown.
Yeah.
This is when it is a scarce resource. He's using 3 motorcycles to pull along his one self in his chariot. It was just like, okay, this is, villain material here of using stuff in excess when it's scarce.
He's worth it.
Yeah. He deems himself worth it.
He deems himself worth it. I think he was such a great character, and I'm so delighted to have Chris Hemsworth probably deliver the best performance he's have delivered ever. Tell me a performance he's done better than this.
Nothing off the top of my head, but I saw a good comparison, actually, not even a comparison, but just that someone had made a note on it, was that after the MCU, we've had a lot of characters playing villains, and that being Chris Hemsworth, obviously now here as Dementis. We had Chris Evans as the villain in Knives Out.
And Grey Man.
And the Grey Man, yes. And then you could make the argument that Robert Downey Jr. as the villain in Oppenheimer. So I think that seeing these guys who we've seen as heroes for the last 10 or so years,
Yeah.
now in villain roles, it's refreshing. It's good to see them in just something completely different.
Well, that is nice to hear. And it's nice to see. And I never fully thought what role the Mantis is going to be playing. And it's as simple as that. He charges up to the Citadel with his army of bikers to say, throw your leaders down and I'll be your boss and I'll be your ruler and I'll make your lives better and I'll make everything equal and I'll share amongst the lot of you. And I like how he was bitch pleased by Immortan Joe.
Yeah, he's so confident in that. Like, I'm going to give you guys such easy terms. I'm going to make this easy for you. And then the war boys, you know, in their devotion to Joe the one is picked, he jumps down, immediately kills himself, and there's Immortan Joe. Every single one of these guys will do that. So, go away. Fuck off. Simple as.
But the Mantis does try to take Gastown, and it was a great plan to make it look like he was chasing Joe's boys, but of course it wasn't convincing enough. What does he do?
Kill some of his own, yeah.
Make it look real. Make it real. And then one of his guys call him scum. And I like how the Mantis realised that. It showed a sign of desperation. And when he eventually took over Gastown, and he made himself into a position of power to be on an equal level of Immortan Joe and the Bullet Farmer, well then that's where the plot from the Mantis progresses but also plateaus, because he's just the ruler of Gastown. Except when we now see him later, when Furiosa and Praetorian Jack visit Gastown, we learn he's just making a wreck of everything.
Yeah.
He is unfit to lead. And that's one thing you gotta pay attention to, the likes of Immortan Joe. A horrible man, but dude, probably a very solid leader.
There's no revolutions taking place there, whereas there's unrest in the in Gastown. There's when they arrive with all the food on the war rig, it's just immediately people are going crazy and destroying the place.
It's the difference between Robert Baratheon as king and Joffrey as king. Put it that way.
Yeah.
And I like how he just decides, I'll just take over Bullet Farm as well. Yeah, I'll just do that and just try and own anything. And he'll still try and throw his, brave behind people, use his own men as a cannon fodder. Remember he's hiding behind a tower and Furious tries to use a sniper on him. He gets his goon to load the rocket launcher for him. Great. Grabs him, flips him over, uses it on the shield. Whoa.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to our end of the year wrap up, because when I was thinking back on it, I was like, will he be the villain of the year? Because Proxima Caesar also was a great villain. I think that hopefully over the rest of the year we have also some other great villains, because I'd love to just narrow it down. It's like, okay, who played the best villain? Because Chris Hemsworth's up there. Absolutely. I think that this was a great villain and a great Mad Max villain. It's not just like he'd only be a great villain here. He'd be a great villain in any kind of a role. And
should we be bold and say that this could actually be Chris Hemsworth's movie and not Anya Taylor-Joy's movie?
I felt it, absolutely, especially because of the fact that we obviously don't get Anya Taylor-Joy for the first hour or so. It's little Furiosa,
and it's Chris Hemsworth all the way.
Chris Hemsworth right up, the whole, until she goes with Immortan Joe, it's very much Chris Hemsworth. So I felt in the same way that the Mad Max Fury Road, that the title cards were Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
This is very much Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. They're both deserving of that lead title.
Except maybe Chris Hemsworth should have been first. Maybe not. I don't know.
Based on screen time, yes, and based on dialogue, yes. But I don't think you could get away with saying this is Furiosa starring Chris Hemsworth. It has to be Anya Taylor-Joy.
Some movies do it.
Some movies do. But I don't think you could have gotten away with it here.
Fair enough.
Back in the day, you could have.
Yeah.
The original Superman movie?
Yeah.
That original Superman movie is starring Gene Hackman and Christopher Reeve. Even though Christopher Reeve is Superman,
I believe that.
In this day and age, I don't think you could get away with that. I think that would have been a red flag there to be like, why is the Furiosa movie starring Chris Hemsworth?
Let me give you an example that goes in the opposite direction. Remember that movie Black Phone?
Yep.
I'm watching that movie expecting Ethan Hawke to be the first name to appear in the opening credits. Not the title, not in the poster. The opening sequence where they list the cast members. I'm expecting Ethan Hawke to get the first villain name. No, he gets the and. He gets and Ethan Hawke in the end, at the end of the credits.
Some of those are more valuable.
But here's the thing: Ethan Hawke is the name of that movie.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting him to be that. Even though, in terms of screen time, in terms of minutes, maybe not the case. Of course, he's not the main character, but he's the main actor. He's the profile actor.
The profile actor, yeah.
But I'm expecting his name to come first, but that's not the case. Just wanted to mention that.
Play devil's advocate. Yeah.
Yeah, it can set yourself for certain expectations. Back to something I really want to talk about that I think I'm the only one on Earth that this gets recognised from. It's the soundtrack. Junkie XL, who I believe he was credited for Fury Road as Junkie XL, but the name Tom Hulkenberg. Yeah, Tom Hulkenberg is the guy behind the score and the music of Furiosa. Now, while I will fully admit, more or less the same instrumental note from Fury Road, the yeah, that is in Fury Road. It's also here as well. The Dementis is gaining score, where Dementis is literally gaining on them. Remember that wide shot where Furiosa tries to lose
go
him
around and they go over, yeah.
And that wide shot where you see Dementis looking at him from his vehicle window, and you see the shot of him, just the wide shot of him just charging up and crashing. Yeah, that. You could say that the action scene in the middle of the movie is the best part. I think for me, that short sequence of Dementis charging through the gate and chasing Furiosa, which leads to her getting her arm injured, which was a great way, by the way, quite creative, I think, for a vehicle to jam itself into her own vehicle. And I think that sequence, when I see this movie again, that's the one I'm going to be holding my breath for. Yeah. Because I just love listening to it. I love sitting down and being taken by the music. The score is the best thing ever in these two movies, Fury Road and Furiosa. And by the way, she purposely rip her arm off, or did it come off?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something I thought of because I had always thought it was she pulled it off to get away, but she sacrificed the map.
Yeah,
that was another thing. Like that, she was focusing on recreating the star map on that arm. Yeah, she obviously loses it, and that's why it takes her so long to get back to the green place, because she doesn't have the map, as well as finding the opportunity. Yeah, but. And I like, did it just fall off? Yeah, it's a good question.
And I like how while he's having Praetorian Jack dragged through the dirt, he's sitting up there eating, and after the time has passed, he just says, "I'm bored." Remember that line?
Yeah, that's it. It's not not like they've had enough, or this is it. It's on board now.
He's not. He doesn't have any thoughts trying to generate his ideology of the world he envisions he leads in the wasteland. No, he's just doing what he feels like doing in the heat of the moment, and now he just says, "I'm bored. I just killed someone. I'm bored."
I like the way you put that. Yeah, that he doesn't have he doesn't have a plan.
Yeah,
he doesn't have an ideology or what he's trying to create. It's just very much like in that moment.
He's
on board now.
He's someone who believes in his bullshit when he says it, and he doesn't actually realize how much of a bullshitter he is. So, and I like that hard cut when we see her arm hanging on the chain, her immediately on the bike speeding to the Citadel. Oh, I sat up in my seat. Did you sit up in your seat?
Yeah, well, once the dust settled and you see just the arm there remaining, I'm like, yeah, that is such a hard image. It's just like, yeah, it's visceral, and you're like, yes, she's got away. Yeah,
but her on the bike just going 90 into the desert and one-handing it, no doubt. And I suppose this is the appropriate time to mention quick cameo from Max Rokostansky.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Max to begin with. Obviously, now thinking back on it, yeah, it definitely was Max. But it was strange. It was just a little bit strange to have that immediately followed by someone had taken her back to the Citadel. And then it also just kind of makes me think, like, where does this sit in the timeline? Because was Max that close to the Citadel and Gastown and Bullet Farm all this time?
Well,
Do you know, like it nearly kind of raises more questions than it answers, or it raises more questions than it needs to, because all it is a quick little cameo of there's Max.
Yeah.
But it raises more questions for me, which I didn't need it to do. I didn't want it to do either.
George Miller did say that Max is lurking in the background somewhere, and he knows exactly where Max is. Mm-hmm. He knows where he is the year before Fury Road. Mm-hmm. And
but just proximity wise, like, it felt like all of these, like, you can see Gastown from the Citadel with the telescope.
Yeah.
So it's not that far.
Yeah.
So I would assume that, because you had the map there and it was kind of a triangle between all three.
Yeah.
And Max is just kind of hanging out, like he's very, very close to all three of these.
Yeah.
So it just, you can see why it raised more questions, like.
Well, I understand that, and I'm not gonna, I can't entertain it because I don't know, I don't have the answer.
Of course.
What I can say is that I never actually fully intended to expect to see the character Max.
Not at all. Yeah,
And
same.
I knew it was him because two signs. One, the car. Mm-hmm. Two, he's eating a can of food.
Probably dog food.
Probably dog food.
Mm-hmm.
Max's favourite food. And I do have a question of, does he not recall saving Furiosa?
See, that's the question. Did he save her?
Yeah.
Was he the one that saved her?
Because, well, I have to believe that he did, because that shot of him looking down at her from the distance, falling, collapsing, and next scene, she wakes up in the underground hut with all those cannibals. Mm-hmm. Did Max bring her there?
Yeah.
Why? Why didn't he just keep her? Because I think in a traditional story,
he would have saved her, yeah.
And she would have woke up next to him.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, did he bring her then to the Citadel?
Yeah.
Because when he, in Fury Road, when he's at the Citadel, it's like it's all new. He's never been here before.
I suppose, do we know that?
That's the impression I got. See, I think it makes more sense that it is just a quick cameo, it's just a shot, and somebody else found her. But it's confusing where it's placed.
Yeah. If, we're just going to go around in circles.
Yeah,
we're just going to do a Praetorian Jack in this. So I think we just have to accept that was definitely Max.
Yeah.
And by one reason or another, Furiosa was brought to the underground hut.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, remember that woman said, "Stay here, you can find peace."
Yeah.
Did you feel like that woman was trying to say something that maybe we as the audience should know? Furiosa is going down a different path than she should.
Oh, I took it very literally that she was going to kill her. That was it. Like, no, like, kind of, I'll put you out of your misery. You'll find peace. I didn't. The way you're trying to ask the question, no, is the answer. I took it very literally.
I know these are the same type of people that try to grab Furiosa at start when Dementus saved her. Mm-hmm. I know those are the type of people. I guess I just took it too much metaphorically.
Yeah, as opposed to literally.
Yeah. And then back to the scene when we reference Furiosa and Joe took a visual look at her, and the situation she was in was that she had lost an arm. Mm-hmm. And, then she builds herself the mechanical arm. Cool sequence. And then apparently there's a 40-day war taking place.
Yeah.
And that was what the history man said, the narrator of the movie. A 40-day war. So this is a war between Dementus's gang and Immortan Joe's gang. By the way, that's the end of Immortan Joe. After that scene, we don't see him again in this movie. And I suppose I was expecting him to... maybe Joe is clearly too smart to not put himself in harm's way, but I would have loved to have seen somewhat of a sequence where Joe is in the midst of this battle and fighting Dementus.
Yeah, I disagree.
You disagree?
I think that the consequences of Fury Road that led him to leave, that was, because he didn't leave in Furiosa, that makes the reason why he left in Fury Road even more like, oh, this is a huge deal to him. He wouldn't come down from his tower for a 40-day war.
But he would for his wives.
But when his wives have been taken, that's it, I'm gone. He's straight out after them. It just kind of like enhances his reason for it in Fury Road.
I suppose the question comes into effect when you left the Citadel in Fury Road unprotected.
Mm-hmm. It was that was actually something else I wanted to say was Furiosa. They kind of say in this film, they're trying to distract you. He wants to take the Citadel. He wants you to go to Gastown, and then he'll take the Citadel.
Immediately thought of Fury Road.
Immediately, there's like, that's what happened in Fury Road. As soon as you left and they realised that no one was protecting the Citadel, they went back.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, you should have known this to not leave it unprotected because of this situation. I would have thought that Immortan Joe is a smarter man than if this...
More calculated,
yeah, that if this situation... Obviously, he was caught off guard in Fury Road, and that's why it happened.
Yeah.
But now we know that this happened before, and you were advised against it.
Yeah.
But maybe because it was his wives, he's blinded. He's not even thinking. He's just straight out there to go recover them.
But we do see his sons in action, Rictus and Scrotus.
What a dad to name your kids Rectus and Scrotus.
Is it Rictus?
It's Rectus, like
Rectus.
rectum and scrotum.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, Rectus and Scrotus, yeah.
Okay, well, I was expecting Scrotus to receive a death scene to represent the villain death from the gang led by Immortan Joe, because we're not going to get Immortan Joe death here.
Yeah,
So-
and he's not in... Scrotus isn't in Fury Road. Yeah.
But he is apparently in the Mad Max game.
Oh, yeah. I've not played it, but I know of the game. He's in the game, okay.
So the game takes place probably the year before Fury Road.
Okay.
And some of the characters, like the little girl Max has hauntings from. Apparently,
Oh, she's in the game?
She's apparently in the game,
Okay.
a character. The Mentis is mentioned in the game.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The Mentis is mentioned in the game. Immortan Joe is...
That game came out before Fury Road, though.
Actually, no, it was after.
Oh, was it?
Immediately after, 2015.
Oh, okay.
George Miller...
That's interesting, yeah.
George Miller was involved in the making of it. Recently has said, yeah, it's not up to my standard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
But Immortan Joe was mentioned, as well as Dementis. I think he was referred to as Dr. Dementis in the game.
Maybe that's where I pulled Doctor from.
That's what I refer to him as, Dr. Dementis, but it's obviously not an appropriate title for him. But Scrotus is the main villain in the Mad Max game. And I suppose George Miller's respecting canon by that, so that's why we don't see Scrotus die in this movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
And here's a little bonus flashback for you, David. Do you know, if I said his name you might not remember, but he's the other war boy who was with Nux. He's got scars on his face.
I know of him,
He's
yeah,
got
yeah.
staples. He was actually Stryker in the recent X-Men movies.
Yeah.
That actor, right? Mm-hmm. That's the same actor as Scrotus.
Now that you've said that, I can fully see it. Yeah, I was trying to figure out where I knew Scrotus from.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, yeah.
That's
him, yeah.
Just go to show, George Miller, advocate for recasting actors. And recasting actors to play different characters.
Yeah, rather than...
Because Hugh Keysburn played the original villain in Mad Max. There was a character called the Gyro Pilot who played another pilot captain in Beyond Thunderdome.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, if we ever want to see Mel Gibson to play an older Mad Max, it won't be far-fetched. And David, I'd welcome a new actor to play Mad Max if he'd rather not have Tom Hardy come back.
I was going to say there, I wouldn't be opposed to having Mel Gibson play a villain in the future against Tom Hardy's Mad Max. I think that would be really interesting.
I think that would be great. Yeah, I think that'd be good. I'd welcome that in a heartbeat. So I'll get back to that in a minute, but let's close the conclusion of the story of Furiosa.
Yeah.
I suppose we have to accept the fact that he was losing Dementis and he was on the run and he had little to no minions left. He had Rizadel Pell, he had Yawan with the scars on her teeth, and I think that was Chris Hemsworth's wife.
Oh, really?
I think that was Lena Plesky. I think that was her. And then he had this other fool who was always like near Dementis.
He was like the equivalent of like Igor to Dr. Frankenstein.
Yes,
he's like always just there, like just kind of like his announcer. Like,
and I like how Dementis knew he was being chased by a single vehicle and he's like, okay, we have to split up, no time for long goodbyes, we've been through a lot now, go. He gives him the chariot and you all go in their separate ways. And Furiosa, great solid action set piece of revenge and just eliminating the numbers who could be Dementis. Of course, the last one she gets to is Dementis, but by the way, a nice throwback to the quicksand in this movie Furiosa because there's quicksand briefly in Beyond Thunderdome. So I like the quicksand here. I like that those motorbike gang members from Fury Road who blew up the canyon, they come back, they take out Riza Del Pel. So nice. Keeping in the continuity.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the existence. And she toys with Dementus when she catches up to him.
She doesn't, kill him or wake him up in the night. She destroys his vehicle. Like, takes away the petrol, gets rid of the front wheel, like just kind of toys with him for a little bit.
Don't you just feel bad for any one person who wakes up in the heat of a desert and they try to take a drink and
there's no water?
There's no water.
Yeah. When you wake up in the middle of the night here in Ireland and you wake up and you just don't have that glass of water and you can feel the dryness in your throat, so I can't imagine what it's like in the middle of the desert.
No matter how bad of a person anyone may be, you just might feel bad about them not having a drink of water.
Yeah.
I go all the way back to poor Frodo when he didn't have a drop of water.
Oh, don't even get me started.
I still had frustration towards him because of how he treated Sam.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But she toys with him. She lets him run off. She drives after him. He knows he's not gonna get away, so he just stops. And then he goes to walk forward. She reverses. Then he starts chasing after her. She reverses. He throws the gun at her. Oh, she took his bullets. And then he just, okay, you got me. I surrender.
Not even that. She doesn't even stop the toying because she has the knife in her boot that she's taken the blade out of. It's just the handle. Like, remember, she's fully anticipated every scenario. Like, don't forget, this is all new to him. It's all happening.
Yeah.
She's gone over this in her head 15 years.
Yeah.
She's gone over this every night in her head. She's like, this is what I'll do. She's planned this out meticulously of what will I do when I get him alone.
And I like the choice of words she uses. You killed my mother. She was magnificent. You took my mother and my childhood. I want them back.
Yeah.
I think I think if you just let that marinate, that's gonna be cemented in one of the best lines hero delivers to the villain, in which they have plotted years of revenge on.
Yeah.
I want them back. You're asking for something you yourself know you can't get, but you're releasing your anger towards them.
And it's crazy because he doesn't even know who she is. Like, he's literally asking, like, can I have a hint? Is she blonde, brunette? Like, and his speech is equivalently good. Like, he's like making the argument like, you might as well kill me because I don't know who you are, I don't know what you're talking about, and I've got an incredibly high threshold. You are asking for something that I can't give you. I can't give it to you, so what are we doing here? Just kill me.
And not only that, he says, good, kill me, I'll be dead and you'll still be angry.
He knows, even though he has no power, he has all the power here. And he's even like kind of trying to toy with her as well, because he's like, here, look, watch, I'll turn around and you can do it and I won't know when it'll happen. It'll be even more satisfying, because I won't know at what point the bullet's going to come, and it'll be even more of a surprise. Like, he's egging her on. He's like, right, if I can't get out of this, I might as well just mess with her some more so she might do it quicker. And like that, kill me, and then you'll still be angry. You won't get anything out of this, hoping to kind of egg her on to do it quicker or something. That's what I felt it was anyway. Did you feel like the way that George Miller presented his end was satisfying?
I suppose I was a little uncertain when I couldn't understand the words he was saying. But I was satisfied with that confrontation. It's a movie I went into not realising fully that, this is a revenge movie.
Yeah, it's not an action film, it's a revenge film.
And I suppose I can compare it to another revenge movie like The Revenant, where I probably will admit I feel the raw and urge of witnessing the exacting of that revenge in that movie. More than this, because this is a spectacle. This is a show I want to see. I want to be delivered a presentation of Furiosa. And I got that. And when I knew this confrontation was coming to an end, I could only ask for the next best thing, and that is, how does she kill him? I do love my villain deaths. I tell you. Do you see what she did to Morton Joe?
Yeah, I can remember. So I think with George Miller, he interestingly said, like, there's no way I can satisfyingly do this, so I'm going to give you a couple of options, and you could decide what you like. And I think that was the most clever way to do it. Was, what were the options? So there was shot him in the head.
Yeah.
Right then and there. Let him wander the desert.
Drag him through the desert. Yeah, same way with Praetorian Jack.
And planted the peach in him. It's the most unique tree in all of the wasteland, and it's because its roots are rooted within a human. And I was like, okay, yeah, you can. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm glad that's an interesting villain death. Not even a death,
defeat,
imprisonment, defeat for the rest of his life. But
it was the truth though, because the Hershey man narrated. There are some who said this is how she did it, and this is how she did it, but it was Furiosa who whispered to me the truth. And yes, she grew a tree from his groin.
Yeah, but you can have those. You get to see those satisfying options as well of him dying right then and there.
Did you envision the perfect villain death of Dementus? No.
It's not something that I whatever he had presented to me, I would have been satisfied with. I think there was nothing that I was, I hope he goes this way, or I hope he gets his comeuppance, or I hope this. But the end that he got, like you said there, he's the peach growing from him. Is a
creative one.
Very, very creative, and it also is like a suffering of that. Furiosa says, "You took my childhood from me."
Yeah.
And I can't have that back, so I'm going to take your adulthood from you. I'm going to take your years from you the way that you did for me. And he's stuck there.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably being fed and watered only enough to keep him alive.
Yeah.
You know,
that's probably a little too fucked up for me. I'm sorry.
You would have been happy just with the shot in the head.
No, preferably being dragged through the desert. If she Praetorian jacked his ass.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I think I didn't envision a perfect villain death for him. I think now thinking about it, maybe something like the quicksand, but maybe that wouldn't be definitive for me. Maybe a drowning was a nice one. Maybe what she was doing and just beat his face to a pulp and just constantly bash his skull in.
Yeah.
Maybe that was one option. I think I like the idea of just leaving him stranded in the desert, wandering. So many options, there's not going to be one that was satisfying, and for every one you do receive when it comes to a villain defeat, you have to accept it for what it was, because the next one in a different movie will be different. Never thought I was going to get that to Immortan Joe, but when it happened, I accepted it. Never thought I was going to get that for Dementus, and I will accept it. And then this movie did quickly sped up to the final moments where leads into Furio, because he grabs the peach from his groin tree, shares it with the wives who were clearly stand-in doubles, except for one. I think one of them was the actual actress, the Cheetah, I think. She's the one who turned back to look behind her, and you can see her face.
Yeah.
So I think, cause no way that was Zoe Kravitz or
I didn't think so. Rose Huntington Whiteley.
Yeah, or Elvis Presley's granddaughter. And I thought, really, because I don't see Anya Taylor-Joy as the version to endure the events that took place in Fury Road.
There was one point I remember, we went obviously to see this in cinema, not just the two of us, but we had a bit of a gang with us. But there was a moment where, and our other friend Brian as well had mentioned it, where it's a shot from behind where she's just shaved her head.
And she burned a skull in the back.
And I really genuinely did think, that sounds like Charlize Theron. I wonder, did she give an audio reading, an ADR? But like, I felt that's not Anya Taylor-Joy. Like, time has passed now between the end of the film, the end of this saga, and where the film ends, that it's progressed now to Charlize Theron. And I'm very curious to see, was that Charlize Theron's dialogue, or did they emulate it with Anya Taylor-Joy? Because it was spot on. I genuinely thought, I wonder, is this film going to end with Charlize Theron instead of Anya Taylor-Joy?
I fully agree with you. Yes, it definitely did sound like Charlize Theron, but it wasn't. I don't believe it was. No, I think it was all in.
Dead ringer.
Oh yeah, dead spot on. Sure, we thought Austin Butler sounded an awful lot like Stellan Skarsgård in Dune Part 2.
Fair enough, yeah.
From the back of a headshot. So,
but I think with the way that this ends, on that like shot of the truck closing,
the underneath hatch, just
where the girls are hidden,
just shutting, very casual like.
That it's a very much a wrapping up in a bow, and So because of that, it's very much that you would watch this and then immediately watch Mad Max Fury Road afterwards.
Oh, it's too late. You should have watched it in cinemas.
You should have. But no, I'd be happy to, I think when I watch Furiosa again, to watch it and then immediately follow it up with Mad Max, that these films are nearly set to be watched together.
Yeah.
In a two-part
But then
watch.
again, I also see this as an episodic spin-off from the main franchise of Mad Max, even though in this continuity, there's only 2 movies now. And you only have the main one of Fury Road to go on. And I know he has an idea called the Wasteland to do, which apparently is a prequel the year before Fury Road, which I think now, in my opinion, I'll accept any movie George Miller gives that set in the Mad Max world, regardless. But I want a continuation.
You want to see something after
even
this, yeah.
even if Furiosa's time is done and we just get a standalone story of Mad Max, I do want it. And I won't call it out for not bringing back Tom Hardy. You want to get Eric Bana to play an older Mad Max? Yeah, go ahead. You want to get a younger actor to play Mad Max, but still progress the story? Get Aaron Taylor Johnson in there.
You just want to see something in the Mad Max universe.
And I'll actually welcome a variety of actors to take on the role, because it's not really about the character, it's the idea of this individual roaming the wasteland.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. And I just wanted to ask you this, David. Who do you think will win in a fight? Immortan Joe or Dementis?
I think Immortan Joe's got like that hidden power. Like he's one of those villains that like he doesn't ever need to use his fists.
Yeah.
But when he does, he's like a one knock punch. You know.
So
like,
do you think if he were to physically fight Dementis barehanded with each other, who do you think would win that?
I think it would be Immortan Joe. I think Dementis is one of those guys who like is. He's one of those showboaters, like, oh, you're really gonna fight me? Like, and he'd be like playing up to the crowd, and then he'd turn back, and then that's when he gets sucker punched.
Yeah.
So I think I like Immortan Joe as a villain better, but I really like Chris Hemsworth as the Dementis.
Yeah, I actually think Immortan Joe's a better villain, but I do love the everything in that of Chris Hemsworth's Dementis. And I suppose, you know, it would have been a nice idea to see Max Rokitansky face off Dementis, but can't get everything.
No.
I think I fulfilled the destiny here, David.
Yes, you have. We'd like to announce this is the last episode of Talking Pictures because there's no more films to come. Brian will never be watching another film again.
Yeah.
I'm obviously joking. Don't worry. We'll be here again.
I've 4 years.
Yeah.
There was no way this movie was going to be the perfect spectacle it was in my mind. But I still loved it. And
that's good. I'm glad that...
And I still look forward to watching it again.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're able to know that what you had built up in your head was never achievable.
Yes.
You know?
And I only realised that after the movie finished.
But that you were still able to enjoy it, and like you said, you're looking forward to watching it again. You know, that's the sign of a good movie, is when you're watching it and you go, I can't wait to see this again. So I'm glad that even though it didn't live up to your expectations, you still had a great time. You enjoyed it.
But people are stupid.
People need to go out and watch this film. If you haven't, if you for some reason made it all the way through this episode and haven't seen this film, go out and see this film. It's a great time.
If anyone listens to this episode without watching the movie, unsubscribe. Seriously, this movie, we are not going to get any more of these movies if
people don't see them.
If this flops, we will not get another Mad Max movie from George Miller if this does not do well. Straight up. This was the most expensive movie in Australia. This movie has a lot of things going against it. Mainly so, it's a prequel to a franchise that is not well dipped, and it's not diluted.
No, it's not diluted at all. Yeah.
And I guess if you just want to see Vin Diesel drive off a dam that explodes and watch him front on it, work away. You'll probably end up as one of the people that the wasteland inhabits because you didn't watch your fellow Mad Max movies. So I don't know what's wrong with people, but it's not my favourite movie of the year, but it's definitely in the top 5 so far, and it no doubt has the best trailers of this year. So
have you got a recommendation for us before we let these people go?
Yeah, I do actually. I think people should start watching Anthony Mackie's show Twisted Metal.
Okay. I've not seen it. It's not one that I've been particularly interested in, but why should people watch it?
Because if they're going to watch Vin Diesel drive off and a damn it explodes, then I think, and front on it, I think they'll be alright watching the things that Anthony Mackie does in this show. Mm-hmm. They're not as cartoonish, but it's definitely a heightened reality where you watch an episode for 30 minutes and you just take the joys out of it. Mm-hmm. The character Sweet Tooth, who wears the mask and he's the clown and he lights his head on fire and he doesn't feel the pain. Mm-hmm. It's great. Thomas Hayden Church is in it as a cop who thinks he's bringing back law and justice, but really he's just an asshole. Mm-hmm. Anthony Mackie, in Twisted Metal, he's a milkman couriering packages, and if he retrieves this one package to deliver, he'll receive a permanent residency in behind a walled city. Cool. So it's a great fun, almost shut your brain off but appreciate the drama type of show. It is quite funny. It's stupid. I'm trying to think, how can I best describe it? If you were to watch any of the superhero shows that came from Marvel MCU, and that would be like maybe Mad Max. Twisted Metal is equivalent to CW superhero TV shows.
I guess, yeah.
Twisted Metal is definitely campy, and it's most certainly silly,
but it's good, campy and silly
to my standard.
Yeah,
I couldn't continue watching CW stuff with the Flash and whatever else I was watching, but Twisted Metal is just enough for me to also enjoy.
Yeah.
So Twisted Metal, I think people should give that a watch. 10 episodes, we're getting to season 2. It's great. The video game genre, it's excelling to great heights. Looking forward to Borderlands, regardless of what unbiased opinions are to my biased opinion. And Halo season 3. Let's go.
I'm going to go with a simple one. I'm going to recommend Mad Max Fury Road. And then I'm going to second recommend afterwards, I'm going to recommend our episode of Talking Pictures where we discussed Mad Max Fury Road. So a nice triple feature where you go see Furiosa, Mad Max. It's a quadruple feature. So it's you watch Furiosa, then you listen to this episode, then you watch Mad Max Fury Road, and then you listen to our episode where we talk about Fury Road.
And then just, keep listening to our episodes.
And then just keep going. Make sure that you are subscribed to us on your podcasting app of choice. We are available on all of podcasting apps, so if you don't like us here, find us somewhere else. We'll be there. We're available on YouTube as well if you prefer listening to your podcast on YouTube. Make sure that you're following us on all social medias. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Letterboxd. We are absolutely everywhere. All the links are down below. We post new episodes every single Wednesday with a bonus episode every other weekend, so make sure that you are listening out for all those episodes, and just want to say again, thank you very much for listening if you made it through this long episode. But I think this one, it deserves to be long because it's your number one film of the year, or your number one anticipated film of the year, and for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think people should have got that from the TikTok we released.
Yeah.
But,
so
no matter how much work you put into this, David, especially in the hosting part, the opening and closing, no matter how much you accommodate the apps we are on and all the information listeners may need to find us in all sorts of areas on the interwebs. I think at the end of the day, if they really want to find us, we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll always be there. And just one last thank you very much. We really appreciate you listening. If you can give us 5 stars, we really appreciate it. If you can tell a friend, it always helps out the show. And
we are running out of ideas for bonus episodes every second week.
We only have episodes right up until December, so if you have any suggestions or anything like that, make sure that you send us in a suggestion at talkingpicturespodcast1@gmail.com.
Otherwise, I'm just gonna be generating ideas.
We're just gonna do what we want to do.
Yeah, that's it. So it's our podcast, we can do what we want.
Thanks, Brian.
Furiosa.
Thanks, Furiosa.
David.